So Rome was founded in 753 BCE by Romulus and Remus, and I'm sure all of you all have heard that myth. And Rome didn't fall until 1453. By that point in time, the capital had moved to Constantinople in the east in the Byzantine Empire. But Rome lasted over 2,200 years. So that's a reason why Rome is known as the Eternal City.
Salvete, and welcome back to Latin Day. I hope you enjoyed that brief introduction by Mrs. Strange. We're also going to have Mr. Cox here with us, and we're going to get right into talking about the history of the Roman Republic specifically, and then we'll look at how that compares to the United States, which is the reason you're all here.
The Roman Republic began in 509 BC. When the Romans threw off the yoke of a foreign power and established a new form of government. The foreign power was the Etruscans. They were the imperial people of the Italian peninsula at the time. The whole event is connected to this myth of the defilement of Lucretia. The story goes that the son of the Etruscan king, whose name ominously was Tarquin the Proud, had defiled a woman named Lucretia, and that she, dishonored, summoned the menfolk of Rome and demanded that they avenge her dignity, and then proceeded to commit suicide publicly. She, in many ways, becomes the exemplar of Lady Liberty, and the Romans always remembered this moment. In any event, the Roman government that followed was kind of a combination of monarchy and democracy almost. The Romans kept the Senate that had existed under the monarch, but they split the power of the monarch himself, of the king himself, into two magistracies called the consul. And there were two consuls. And the advantage of having two consuls is that they provided kind of checks and balances on each other's behavior and actions. Both consuls were supposed to consult the Council of Elders, which was called the Senate. The word itself comes from the Latin word for old. And then a series of other magistracies gradually evolved. The most important magistracy that involved was the Tribune of the Plebs. The plebeians, or the plebs, were the underclass, ruled by a small and powerful landed upper class, what was called the patricians. These were families that could trace their history back to Romulus himself. And from thenceforth, while Rome was gradually expanding its influence in the Italian peninsula and defeating neighboring cities and kings and countries, there was an ongoing struggle in the city by the plebeians for representation in the government. So you could say it was a kind of ongoing struggle for civil rights.
So similar to the United States, the Roman Republic developed from a desire to escape a sort of tyranny, a sort of overpowered monarch, although the United States did not have a story such as Lucretia. I would also add that if you watch the news report this morning, the word Senate is another English word that comes from Latin. Like Mr. Cox mentioned, comes from the Latin word for old, which is senex. It also draws a sort of parallel between the idea of patricians and plebeians and the way that social structure worked in early America. To use an example, the presidents, most of the presidents with men like Lincoln and Polk as few examples or counterexamples, most of them were major generals such as Washington, Jackson, Taylor, or they were seasoned politicians, or they were just from wealthy families. And a lot of wealth at this time, like most of the world when the United States was founded, was in the upper class. And then there were small farmers trying to just make their way. So in addition to the setting of the formation of the Republic of both the United States and of Rome, there's also a sort of duality with the social structure. Okay, now we'll go back to Miss Strange to talk more about the expansion and military of the Republic.
It's no easy task to explain why the Roman Republic fell. Historians have written volumes about the topic. But I think in many ways, one of the contributing factors was self-interest. Early in Rome's history, the Romans seemed much more willing to sacrifice their own interests for the good of Rome and the Roman people. By the end of the 2nd century BC and in the early 1st century BC, you begin to have a conflict between two factions. On the one hand, you have a group of people who own the land and the money and control the offices in Rome. Cicero calls these people the best people, the optimates. On the other hand, you have a group called the Popularists. And these are people who at times seem genuinely interested in helping the Roman people. They wanted, for example, to give land back to the Roman people. At other times, they seem to be guided more by self-interest than the good of the Roman people. In any event, both factions eyed each other with great suspicion. And during the 1st century BC, you have tension building all the way until about the 40s BC, when Julius Caesar crosses the Rubicon and invades Italy. In many ways, that's the culmination of the growing tension between these two factions.
So we'll hear more about the decline of the Republic from Miss Strange in a minute, but just to reassess and regather what Mr. Cox said, the decline of Rome was based mostly on, or if not entirely on, inner conflict, civil war that stemmed, or the civil war between Augustus and Mark Antony, which eventually stemmed from Julius Caesar's proclaiming himself perpetual dictator after crossing the Rubicon, which is very famous and is of course in Julius Caesar by Shakespeare, which many of you hopefully have read. But that actually stemmed from a lot of these social issues, these class divides that went back nearly 100 years before the death of Caesar, regarding distribution of land, how veterans were compensated, how landowners could control people, how certain tribunes of the plebs wanted to take that land back and redistribute it to the people, how the Republic was becoming a little overextended because of how it was structured. There were numerous aspects like this that led to the decline, and the decline of Rome is very, very complicated. There are hundreds of moving pieces, so of course here we're just going to give a brief overview, but I will now give it off to Miss Strange to give her final comments about the decline of Rome and Rome in general.
And during that time, there were some really great things that occurred, like imperialism. We see Rome expanding a whole lot during that time. The Punic Wars, where Rome gained Sicily, really started off this wave of imperialism way before the empire even started. This was the Republic, where you had people who were involved in the government. The Republic was led by two consuls, and they were a pair, and it was a nice check and balance, and they only ruled for 1 year. They were supported by this large group of senators, and that group, made the decision: you were a senator for life. And during the Republic, there was a lot of focus on expanding, on imperialism, and actually during the Republic, within 200 years, Rome gained so many provinces, from Sicily to Corsica to Sardinia. Africa, the word Africa is actually a Latin word, and that alludes to the northern part of Africa. Obviously, Egypt is a province in and of itself. Macedonia, Crete, Syria, Asia, also known as Asia Minor for Asia Minor. The list goes on and on. So during this time of the Republic from 509 to really the death of Caesar in 44 BCE, we see this great wave of imperialism. The death of Julius Caesar in 44 by the hands of senators, shows that the Republic has outgrown herself. That there are just so many complicated factors that people aren't getting along, whether within the government, sounds familiar, or outside the government, which is the factions between the rich and the poor. So good people, were out there trying to prevent the fall, but unfortunately, it didn't work. For the whole republic. So Rome does eventually move into an empire where the power is in the hands of one person, more or less. Once again, a little bit more complicated than that, but it's just so important to recognize all of the things that the Roman Republic gave us and what the people tried to do, both good and bad, because there's so much to learn, and not to mention these stories, as intricate and soap opera-esque as they are, they're really a blast to read and to know, and so I highly encourage you to learn more about Rome, because it's so fascinating that this place that's so far away from our own civilization in both time and geography has and continues to have such a profound impact on our Western society. So with that, I would like to wish all of you all a happy International Week and happy holidays as we move into the last week and a half of school.
All right, that's going to be it for this video. I want to give, of course, a special thanks to Mr. Cox and Mrs. Strange for recording all this for me, so I can make this hopefully interesting and intriguing video that'll remind you why, in addition to why Latin isn't a dead language, that Rome is indeed more important than just something to be studied in foundations of world societies. It's something that has numerous impacts today. It has something that has, like Ms. Strange said, it has stories, it has politics, it has everything about the Western world. It's the foundation of the Western world, you could say. So I hope this has motivated you to go study more. I hope you enjoyed it if you watched to the end. And I hope you enjoy the rest of International Week. Walete.